Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another update. So in today's update, we are going to be taking a revisit once again to talk a little bit about the unemployment update, specifically about the lawsuit situation. I do know there have been a lot of people that have been awaiting information, and I know it's been a little bit of a while, but the big reason why is because I've admittedly been waiting for information as well, because there are some states that have been relatively quiet, and there are some states that we finally do have brand new updates, so we're going to share about in a little bit. But the big idea is that we've really just been trying to compile information, so hopefully that's a little bit understandable. But if you've been waiting for information, hopefully we can get to more information in your state in today's update. Now do notice is that, as always, the story is that I don't have information from every single state, just because there are still states that have been relatively quiet, but we will definitely cover as many as we possibly know of and that we can. If you guys are brand new here, synopsis to basically the story to what's really happening right now is that ever since unemployment ended, there are several states that are currently now opening or have had some kind of lawsuit opened up throughout this entire time in order to try to fight to bring back unemployment. Some have been settled, some are still ongoing, some were settled but were appealed to kind of reverse the decision, if that makes a little bit of sense. And there's others that kind of have a very particular story behind what's been going on there. So as always, we're going to cover all of that in today's update, but as always, maybe real fast before we begin, consider smashing the like button because it is always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell if you're interested in videos similar to this. We will hopefully also transition to other just general finance topics. So regardless of that, I figured that if you are someone that's going through some kind of financial related situation, that's pretty much the goal of hopefully the content that we're hoping to kind of make going forward. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts, and especially true, maybe any particular information you might have about your particular state, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of other people in your state would also greatly appreciate it as well. And I think it's always just great to share information around. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So maybe to start off the spot is that the 16 states that currently still or had some kind of lawsuit going on, as a huge recap, I'll just read it straightforward, are going to be in Indiana, Maryland, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, Ohio, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Louisiana, West Virginia, Missouri, Alabama, Iowa, New Hampshire, and Arizona. So those are pretty much the states that have or had some kind of lawsuit open up that's ongoing right now at this current time. But as always is that we will try to cover as many states as we can. I think at the end of the day, hopefully, even if we don't get to your state, it's at least comforting to maybe know what's going on in other states, to see what's physically possible, and to maybe at least know that we have other fellow Americans, maybe to take some relief in that, that are hopefully making progress. Of course, we hope to have it open in as many as we possibly can. But the first two states that I think we're really going to focus on is going to be in Arkansas and Oklahoma. So Arkansas and Oklahoma right now at this time, they're kind of in a very interesting situation. So the good news about those two states is that they've actually both officially won their appeal in order to try to bring back unemployment. So huge congrats there. However, the story is that for the last about 1 to 2 months, pretty much since Labor Day or since when they made their decisions, what really ended up happening is that even though they've officially won their appeal, the governors in those particular states are currently trying to just block or just simply not respond to that particular appeal. So if it makes a little bit of sense, basically the idea is that sometimes you can have a situation where maybe you win the right to do a certain something, but then the other side will just not do that particular something. So that's a little bit of the situation that's going on there. What did end up happening over there is that I believe that they tried to plea a case to really push and force out those governors to bring it back. But then what really ended up happening is that the governors on their side side, they tried to plead the case that because they had already sunk enough time between when it physically ended to the present when that decision was made, that they felt maybe it wasn't logistically possible to do it. So what they're working on now is essentially two things. The first is the actual logistic to trying to potentially bring it back, of how it can physically be done. But the other big thing is that because technically they've won the appeal but not the actual official case, what's also going on is just the case itself. So I believe, for example, in Arkansas, I believe their hearing was due right around October 13th. And so the story to what's happening now is that they scheduled that hearing, and I believe is that the governor gave them, or the judge gave them, about 30-ish days to respond. We don't know if they're actually going to comply and go through with, responding within 30 days. But the idea is that at least we finally do have some kind of time frame. So that is relatively new information compared to last time. Now, the Ohio situation is a little bit of an interesting story. So the maybe recap to just the background to what happened in Ohio, as just a recap for anyone that's maybe new, welcome here. If you guys are brand new here, maybe consider subscribing to joining in. But the story over there essentially with Ohio is that they sued Governor DeWine. They lost their case initially, then they appealed that decision, then they successfully won the appeal, so huge congrats there, and then the governor appealed the appeal, so they tried to fight the decision, and then sadly they ended up losing that appeal, and then they tried to escalate and do another appeal afterwards, and then what ended up happening is that the judge went relatively quiet. So the answer is that we're still pretty much awaiting information that's going on there. And there's a lot of uncertainty to what's happening. Many articles that have kind of come out pretty much just state that the answer to what decision was made in Ohio, like the final verdict and decision, is that we still don't have a decision. So the decision is that we're still waiting a decision at this current time. So we don't know what's happening there, but I figured is at least it's still ongoing. So maybe there's some, I wouldn't bet on it, but just know is that there is a potential that it can really swing both ways right now at this time. Of course, we're just still pretty much waiting, as just mentioned. I know it might be very emotional and even a little bit rough in a lot of ways to realize that, there are a lot of governors and representatives that were voted in by the people that are now suing or appealing or fighting the people. So it is just, I know it's a little bit hard to take in that a lot of these people were the people that were actually voted in that are now trying to turn against their own supporters or people that, are the reasons why they even have that power to begin with. But it is just simply put what's happening over there right now. And now the next state that we're going to be talking about is probably going to be one of the most populated states that had their unemployment program end early, and that is going to be in Texas. So I know there are a lot of people in Texas that are awaiting decisions. So the story to what happened in Texas, maybe as a background, is that they had a lot of just delays and holdups throughout the last couple of months with their lawsuits. The good news is that they scheduled their hearing, and the good news is that their hearing has also now officially happened. I believe it specifically happened, or it was scheduled for October 19th. So literally just about less than a week ago. So it is relatively brand new information. However, at this current time, the only information we have there, now feel free to maybe comment if you have any, because I do know is that information is moving really fast, but David Sibley, who is the lawyer in Texas, if you happen to be over there, he has basically just shared that right now at this time, he's still awaiting decisions from the judge, so we don't know what the judge is going to physically say, but they're pretty much just at kind of just an open window of waiting at this time period. What we do also know is at this time, is that originally they were having a lot of problems with trying to deal with the plaintiff. The story is that when you have any kind of lawsuit, you have to identify a plaintiff, which is basically the group of people that you are specifically representing. They have to be specific names. There's a couple variations depending on the state that you're in. The good news is that they've officially identified the plaintiff. The other good news is that there's actually many of them. I believe there's over 10 plaintiffs that they're currently representing. but at this current time is that we're really just awaiting more information. But at least that's what we currently know so far, but they're at least moving in a forward direction, and I think that's the most important thing to really take away. Maybe another brand new information that's going on also over there is to one of the reasons why they've been going through delay is that on Facebook, which is because Facebook was one of the places that it started, they tried to organize a fundraiser in order to try to raise money to physically fund and support the Texas lawsuit. And what really ended up happening is that there was a lot of controversy to basically the lawsuit and the fundraising side of what happened over there. There was a lot of kind of just mixed opinions and ideas about what went on there. There were some people that believed that they were raising money, but maybe the money was misused in terms of trying to do it. And that happens a lot of times. You know, you might have heard stories sometimes on the news, how sometimes, you know, you will have an organization that maybe raises money for a particular something, but then there's now a lot of controversy if they actually use that money for that particular something. I think they did actually end up using that money for the lawsuit, but there was also maybe a lot of other just uncertainty to what else went on with that money, and that's kind of what's going on right now. If this sounds confusing, it's really because it actually is physically confusing, because there's just so many question marks that we're really just waiting for answers. So hopefully that kind of is understandable to why it's happening right now. Now, I do know Nexus is going to be in Florida. Long story short is that we're waiting for information. That's really the big story there. They sadly ended up losing the case. There were talks about doing an appeal, but we haven't really heard much about them. But I figured I'd at least tell you, share that particular information than just go totally silent. And probably the last state that we're going to talk about is going to be in Arizona, and the reason is because Arizona also happened to be the most recent state that had some kind of lawsuit opened. So what happened there is that they opened up their lawsuit. They are currently scheduling their hearing, and we don't know exactly when their hearing will be, but we at least know is that they at least have something going on right now. We're waiting for the hearing to physically happen, and then of course we have to wait for the results of the physical hearing, but they're at least just moving forward. But we just don't know exactly because it hasn't physically happened yet. So really, beyond this, that's what I really just wanted to share in today's update. So if you guys found that relatively insightful and haven't done so, maybe consider smashing the like button, consider subscribing, especially if we do end up having more information. Feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just anything. I know it is potentially going to be an emotional time, but it is just what's physically happening. But of course, also feel free to share any particular information, because I think, again, a lot of other people would really enjoy or certainly appreciate it as well. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.